Hello everyone, welcome back to the Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, dated 1st August 2025. Today again we will be discussing some important topics that has appeared in today's The Hindu and the Indian Express newspapers, which are very relevant for your examination. In the initial two topics, we have included two mains practice questions which will be highly useful for your upcoming mains examination. So in the first topic, we'll comprehensively understand the topic anti-defection law. Then in the second topic, we will look into the India-US economic relations, particularly on the backdrop of recent announcements of tariffs by the US president. After that, in our simplified section, we will take up 5 articles and we will try to explain them in simplest language possible to enrich your understanding of the newspapers. Additionally, we have also incorporated some prelims pointers which is going to be very crucial for your upcoming prelims and mains examinations. So have a look on them also and stay tuned. So let's start our discussion with the first topic, that is anti-defection law. The context of this topic is that the Supreme Court on Thursday urged Parliament to revisit the provisions of the 10th schedule of the Constitution. Actually, the Supreme Court was listening to a petition filed against the Speaker of the Telangana Assembly because he was not taking decision with regard to the matters of the disqualification of 10 BRS MLAs who shifted their allegiance to the ruling Congress party in year 2024. Because the 10th schedule or the anti-defection law does not provide for any stipulated time within which the presiding officers should decide on the matters of the disqualification, and that is the reason there has been blatant misuse of this provision. And that is the reason the Supreme Court requested the Parliament to revisit the provisions of the 10th schedule, which doesn't provide for any stipulated time to decide on the matters of the disqualification. And this particular topic pertains to syllabus of your prelims, Indian polity and governance, as well as syllabus of your GS paper 2, Parliament and state legislature, functioning and issues arising out of these. So what is defection? The word defection can be defined as an act of abandoning a person, organization or even a political party. And this word anti-defection gained prominence with regard to the defection that are witnessed in the political domains. I will tell you an interesting story. There is a person with the name of Gayalal who was the MLA from the Haryana. He got elected on a Congress ticket in year 1967. So within 24 hours itself, within one day itself, he switched his allegiance from Congress to the United Front. Then again from United Front to Congress, he rejoined the party. Then again from Congress to United Front. So this shows that within 24 hours itself, he switched side. He was not able to decide to which political parties he should remain. And that is the reason a phrase Ayaram Gayaram gained prominence, and this was coined by a Congress leader to actually mock the blatant political opportunism that is witnessed in the political arena. And this incident actually highlighted the need for the legal safeguards to address the anti-defection. If you look into some data from the 2016 to 20 as per the ADR, that is Association for Democratic Reforms, it says that with regard to the Lok Sabha MPs, 12 MPs defected to recontest poll. Whereas if we talk about the MLAs or the member of legislative assemblies, there we witness more defections. The MLAs who switched the political parties, the 45% of the total MLAs have switched political parties from this period. Also the MLAs who defected to contest fresh elections, 357 were the MLAs who defected to contest fresh elections, and 170 out of them, that is 48%, actually won the elections. Then the re-election rate of the MLAs and MPs were around 52% of the 433 defected MLAs and MPs were actually re-elected. And that is the reason to address this defection, the 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1985 was done, which introduced the 10th schedule, which defines the anti-defection and provided for the anti-defection law. It was introduced, the Constitution was actually amended to ensure that the politicians are held accountable. They are accountable to the political parties, they are accountable to the people who have elected them, who have elected these people because they were part of a certain political party. What are the exact provisions with regard to the anti-defection? It actually provides for the disqualification of any member of any political party. So if the person or the member of the political party is voluntarily giving up membership of the political party, So whenever, let's suppose this person is A and he wants to be part of any political party, he will have to pay a nominal membership fee, then a membership receipt will be given to that person, and now this person will be the member of that political party, and then he can contest election from that political party. If that person is voluntarily giving up the membership, he is giving the formal resignation, obviously that will be a case of the voluntarily giving up membership. But Supreme Court in various judicial observations said that it is not necessary to give formal resignation. Rather, if the person is taking a stand which is against the political party in the public domain, that can be also considered what exactly means by the phrase voluntarily giving up membership of the party. Also, voting against or abstaining from the will of the political party or against the will of the political party. So there is the motion in the houses, which are the opinions of the house or the intent of the house. Then there are resolutions which are voted upon, or even in the case of bill, which is a draft legislation, when duly enacted becomes an act. For example, when it will be passed by the state legislature, or in the case of the center, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, and then it will get the assent of the president or the governor, that bill will become a law or an act. So let's suppose a bill which will be voted upon. So the members who are part of that assembly, what should be their deciding factor, that whether they should support the bill or they should go against the bill? That will be the will of the political party from which they are elected, or the political party whose member they are. The political party will decide that whether they have to support that bill or they should vote against that bill. And if they are not following the orders or the opinions of the political parties, they might be disqualified from their membership of the house. Also, the independent members who join any political party, they may also be disqualified. In the case of nominated members, if the nominated members are joining any political party after 6 months of their nomination, they may also be disqualified. However, the exceptions lie if the 2/3 of the merger is happening. And this provision was introduced by 91st Constitutional Amendment Act of 2003. This we will be seeing in our further discussion. With regard to the presiding officer, he will be the final authority to decide on the matter of the disqualification. Also, if a person who is holding, or he is going to hold the office of the presiding officer, if he or she is giving up membership of the political party to assume the charge of the presiding officer, then and after leaving the position of the presiding officer, if he is joining again the political party, in that case anti-defection law will not be applicable against that presiding officer. Also, the deciding authority is the presiding officer, speaker in the case of the Lok Sabha or in the case of state legislative assembly, and the chairman of the Rajya Sabha in the case of the Rajya Sabha. Also, the rule making power to actually fulfill all the responsibilities which has been given to the presiding officer with regard to the anti-defection law, that rule making power is also provided to the presiding officer, either the speaker or the chairman, and that is again the final authority. They are the final authority, but again Supreme Court in Quota Holohan case said that the decision of the presiding officer is not final, that is under the judicial review. Also, the whip. That whip is actually issued by the political parties, that actually helps in ensuring that members vote in the line with the party policy itself. Whatever the decision is by the party, that is being followed by the whip itself. And you can say he or she is the class monitor in the house itself, who will ensure that every member of that political party is following that whip or the party line itself. And if someone is violating that whip, he may be subjected to the disqualification. For example, with regard to the different matters that comes in front of the house, with regard to different bills, etc., there are various whips that are issued: 2-line whip, 3-line whip, as whatever the importance of matter will be. So if the members of that political party is violating that whip, they are voting against the will of the political party, against the will of the whip, they may be subjected to disqualification. Now let's try to look into the evolution of the anti-defection law. So before 1967, we witnessed less defections, and it was majorly in the states where we were witnessing defections, and the almost 500 defections were witnessed, and that too mainly in the states. And one of the major reason for that was Congress was the main political parties in the center as well as in majority of the state also. Between 1967 to 72, more than half of the state legislators switched side at least once in their life. In 1968, there was a committee that was established under Shri Y.B. Chauhan on the defections, and the mandate that was given to the committee was to examine the issues of the political defections in depth and recommend the effective remedies. Shri Y.B. Chauhan is the former Chief Minister of Maharashtra. He also held the offices of Union Minister of Home Affairs, Union Minister of Defence as well as Union Minister of Finance in different periods. In 1973, government tabled the Constitution 32nd Amendment Bill to tackle the defection, but it got lapsed. It could not be passed. However, in year 1985, the 10th schedule was knitted into the Constitution along with the anti-defection law by the Constitution by the 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act. What exactly changed in the law after the 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act? So, with the 91st Amendment Act of 2003, the initial provisions and the loopholes that were there in the law, they were plugged. For example, the 1/3 split rule, that if there is a political party and 1/3 of the members are splitting from that political party, they will not be subjected to the disqualification provisions. That was amended. And now the 2/3 rule was applicable, and that too, instead of split, the merger rule will be applicable. It is not necessary that the 2/3 people or 1/3 people are just splitting from the political party and then they are having their divergent opinion. Rather, the 2/3 should be there. It should not be 1/3 who the people should be splitting, and they should be merging. They should have the same opinion. Only then they will not be subjected to disqualification. That will be an exception. Also, the amendment provided that the total number of ministers shall not exceed the 15% of the total strength of the Lok Sabha itself. Why? Because earlier there were instances where the people were defecting, the members were defecting from one political party to other. Why? Because there has been various promises that were made with regard to the ministerial post, or they were given various promises for financial gains or various other offices that they were promised, and that is the reason they were switching political parties. But once this number of ministers were capped, again this was not a motivation factor for someone who will be switching the sides. Also, in the case of states, the minimum strength was fixed to 12. Also, the member are disqualified on ground of defection. They will be, who are being disqualified on ground of being defection, they are also being disqualified from being appointed as a minister, which was one of the posts which was being promised for people to defect. Also, the member which are disqualified on the ground of defection shall also be disqualified from holding any remunerative post. What exactly this remunerative political post means, that is not clearly defined. For example, in some of the state assemblies, we witnessed that the parliamentary secretaries were appointed. The MLAs who were part of that assembly, they were also appointed as the parliamentary secretaries to assist the Council of Ministers. That is again a remunerative post. Then the exemption from disqualification in case of split by 1/3 of members of the legislature party has been deleted, and the defectors have no more protection on the ground of splits. Rather, 2/3 of the members should come out from any one political parties and they should be merging. The merger is important rather than only the split. Also, this was one of the very basic question that was asked in year 2014 with regard to the anti-defection law. Now, why there is a need for an anti-defection law, particularly in a democracy like India, where we have seen a number of regional parties, national party and the state party. It will ensure that the members ensure loyalty of, it will ensure the loyalty of the members to the political parties and its policies. That if there is a person A who is being elected as MLA from any political party X, he should show allegiance to this political party. The people who has chosen this MLA, it is because of the fact that he was belonging to this political party itself. Because the people believe in the ideology of this political party. And if this person is leaving this party and he or she is joining any other party, he or she is not again showing the loyalty to the ideology of the political party, as well as not showing loyalty to the will of the people. That is the reason to ensure loyalty of the members to the political parties and the policies, that is policies of the public welfare or the policies with regard to any decision of the government. If the MLA or the MP or the member is not showing support to that policy, he or she cannot be the member of that party, or he or she should not hold the office, because he or she is violating the will or the mandate of that party as well as the people. Also, to uphold the will of the people that we have discussed, that people are electing the persons from the political parties because of the policies that were promised by that political parties, because of the ideology of that political party. And if someone is switching sides, that means he is also violating the will of the people. Also, to facilitate democratic realignment of the parties in legislature by merger of parties. Time and again we have seen the coalition government where one political party supports any other, or even in one political party the members who are part of that legislature, they may have the diverging opinion. So in that case, if there is a political party which is taking back their support from the earlier ruling government, there can be some other group of members from other political party who can support that coalition government. So it will facilitate the realignment of the parties in legislature by merging of the parties, that some of the people from different parties, if they have the same opinion, they have the same ideology, they can come together and form the government. Also, to prevent the non-developmental expenditure which are incurred by the irregular elections. For example, the expenditure in the 2024 Lok Sabha elections was almost 1.35 lakh crore as per the Election Commission of India. If there will be frequent defections, there will be lack of proper stable government, whether at the state or the center, that will create a need of the elections. And that money that will be spent for conducting that election, that will be from the money which me and you have paid as taxes itself. So that will be leading to loss to the exchequer, unnecessary expenditure it will raise. Also, to provide greater political stability by checking the propensity of the legislator to change the parties. That if a person or the member was promised some post, or he or she was promised some financial gain, and he is switching sides from here and there, or this is something which is being done by the group of members, that may lead to an unstable government. And again, it may lead to policy paralysis where the legislature will not be functional properly. There may be a governance deficit, and that will hamper the overall the government system. Also, the anti-defection law, why exactly it needs an overhaul again? What are the various challenges that the anti-defection law is facing? First of all, there is no accountability for the political parties. Here, the law targets only the individual legislature, not the parties that actually engineered the defections. For example, let's suppose if there is a party B, and let's suppose there is another party C, and if there is a member from political party B who is switching side to political party C, and the members of this political party C actually promised this MLA to come from this party, so there is no action which is being taken against this political party C which engineered the defection. Only it is the MLA or the member who will be subjected to disqualification, who will be subjected to punishment. So the political parties face no consequences for inducing the defections. Also, the flawed merger provision, that defection is allowed if 2/3 of the members support a merger. Focus is only on the numbers, not the intent, that legitimize the bulk defections. That wholesale defection is okay, but the retail defection is not okay. Whereas the intent should be important, that why are they defecting? Are they defecting for some financial gain, or they are defecting because the political parties whose member they were earlier, that is not working in the public welfare. In that case, if the intent is good, intent is for the public welfare, for national security, or for overall welfare of the country, if the intent is good, then it's okay. Whereas time and again we have seen this 2/3 of the merger which was made by the 91st amendment, that is again misused consistently. For example, if there is a regional party which is having only 3 members, 2 members will come out of that party and they will say, no, we are following this 2/3 law provision. So again, that means this flawed merger provision is there. We should bring some specific amendment that intent should be seen, that why they are coming out of that coalition or why they are coming out of that party. rather than only the numbers. Also, the excessive power with the presiding officers, that disqualification is decided by the speaker or the chairperson, which is often the partisan in nature. That the people who are holding the office of the speaker, or people who are holding the office of the presiding officer, they also belong to one of the political parties, and mainly the ruling political party. So time and again we have witnessed that they does not decide without any favoritism or without any bias, and because they lacks this independent or time bound judicial oversight, and that is the reason there has been various committees which suggested that instead of chairperson, other authorities should decide on the matter of the disqualification. Also, it fuels the political instability, that it discourages the internal dissent and it leads to en masse resignation. That if there will be dissent within the political party, that some people have of different opinion rather than the opinion of the political party, this law doesn't encourage that doesn't motivate that, doesn't support that. It discourages the individual dissent, which further lead to that dissent will be culminated to a group dissent, and the 2/3 of the people will be coming out of the party. So it enables toppling of the government, and which hampers the governance. If we will be listening to voice of one person or two person, three persons, that if dissent will be giving a proper space, that may lead to reducing the en masse resignation. Because if en masse resignation is happening, the mass resignation is happening by a group of members are resigning from that may lead to toppling of the government, that may give us a need of the fresh elections. That will again hamper the governance, because model of code of conduct will come into force, the state machineries will be involved in conducting elections, etc. Obviously, it will also lead to expenditure. Also, the other issues in the prevalent idea of the anti-defection is that it restricts the freedom of speech and expression of the legislature. That Article 19 under Part 3 of the Constitution that provides for right to freedom of speech and expression. Again, if the legislator who are elected from a political party, if they are not supporting that idea of the political party in the house, that means that they do not have any freedom of speech and expression. Also, it reduces the accountability of the elected representatives, that the people who are getting elected, they are not only accountable to the people, they are also accountable to they are not only accountable to the political parties, rather they are also accountable to the people also who elected them. So in that case, here with the help of anti-defection law, their loyalty, their accountability is only with the political party, not with the people who elected that member. Also, it leads to undermining of the representative government. This leads to subversion of the electoral mandate by the legislator who got elected from one political party. However, they shift their allegiance to any other political parties out of some financial gain or the ministerial berth which was promised. Plus, in a democracy, it is the people who are supreme, and these people, these legislators, are actually representing the people in that house itself. When they are shifting the sides, in a way the electoral mandate is also getting violated. There has been various judicial pronouncement with regard to the anti-defection law. For example, in Kyoto Holohan versus Jaichilhu and others 1992 case, the Supreme Court of India upheld the constitutionality of the law. However, they said that the decision of the presiding officer is under the judicial review. Then in G. Viswanathan versus Honorable Speaker Tamil Nadu Legislative Assembly of 1995 case, where the Supreme Court said that the decision of the speaker is final and cannot be challenged in a court of law. However, in Ravi S. Naik versus Union of India 1994 case, the Supreme Court said that the speaker or the chairman of the relevant legislative body can disqualify an elected representative for defection. Then in Kesam Meghchandra Singh case 2020, the Supreme Court said that the speaker's role in defection cases be replaced by an independent tribunal to prevent bias. Also, with regard to a petition related to the Manipur Congress MLA, the Supreme Court said that the 3 months time will be the limit. The Supreme Court itself set a 3-month time limit for speaker to conclude the disqualification proceedings against the defector members of the political party. So what should be the way forward? First of all, we need to clearly define the defection to prevent its misuse as well as to allow the independent thinking and expression of the members. For example, there are various phrases which are very subjective. What exactly means voluntarily giving up membership? Is that means the formal resignation or something else? So if there will be a clear-cut definition, if there will not be any subjectivity confusion, that will also ensure that there is a proper decision making by the presiding officer without any favor or bias. Also, there is need for promoting intra-party democracy. The democracy within the party itself, regular elections should be there, meetings should be there, because it will encourage the internal debate within the political party itself, and it will also bring the acceptance of the dissent within the parties itself. If there will be intra-party democracy, the party will be comfortable to accept, to listen the dissenting views of the members from earlier instance itself. Also, the ethics committee involvement. For example, the ethics committee was used in cash for query scam that happened in 2005 itself, and recently also there was one cash for query scandal with regard to one of the MPs. So the ethics committee can be used to check the horse trading and unethical conduct of the members, to look up to the intent of the members who are dissenting, that why exactly are they defecting. Also, the independent decision making, that as per the second ARC which was constituted under the Virappa Moily, the second ARC recommended that the disqualification should be decided by the president or the governor on the election commissioner's advice itself, not by the speaker who is partisan, who is from a political party itself. Also, make it an internal party issue that allow parties to expel defectors without affecting their seats, because defection will be leading to fall of the that may lead to fall of the government, and defection to be treated as intra-party matter. There are some people who have also suggested this. Also, clarify the voluntarily giving up membership, define this term explicitly to avoid the ambiguity and the arbitrary interpretations. Plus, the Dinesh Goswami committee said that there is need for a transparent issuance of whips and measures to limit the speaker's discretionary powers, that there should be a time limit that should be given by the law itself, as well as there can be some objective criteria based on which the presiding officer will be taking the decision. Also, in Hasim Abdul Halim committee 1994 and then in 2003, the committee suggested that there is a need of an independent tribunal which should be deciding the disqualification matters of the members rather than only the presiding officer who should decide. The Law Commission's 170th and 255th report again said that speaker to be a neutral body while deciding the disqualification matter. Then the National Commission to review the working of Constitution that came in 2002. Again, they supported this idea of the second ARC. This is a mains practice question that you people can write from this topic. Moving towards our next topic, that is tariffs, tweets and turmoil, Trump's trade offensive. This is with regard to a write-up or an editorial which is written by Mr. Gaurav Vallabh, who is part-time member of Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council. And this is written in the backdrop of US President's recent announcement of a 25% tariff on India. And this particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 2, bilateral grouping and agreements, effect of policies and politics of countries on India's interest, grouping and agreements involving India and or affecting India's interests. As usual, Mr. Donald Trump posted on his Truth Social, which is the social media platform owned by the company of the Trump itself, and he posted that, remember, while India is our friend, we have over the years done relatively little business with them because of their tariffs are far too high, among the highest in the world, etc. And at last, thanks for your attention to this matter. So what exactly irked Mr. Donald Trump? What is the main backdrop that why we are witnessing this 25% tariff? However, it is much less as compared to what was announced against the China, which is 30%. It is more than the trade, it is more than the economic. But let's first look into the trade aspect or the economic aspect. India's trade surplus has consistently increased with regard to the trade with US. For example, India has more than $40 billion surplus with regard to the trade between India and US if you talk about the 2024-25. The exports to United States were around $1960 million, whereas the imports were around $15 million only. And that is the reason, because of this consistent trade deficit which US was witnessing, US is again levying various tariffs on countries including India to bridge their trade deficit, because they are also witnessing various other structural issues in their economy. For example, their current account deficit is consistently very high. And you know that in the current account, we trade in visibles, trade in invisibles, that is export of goods and services both. So when a country will have consistently very high imports and less exports, that country will have to face the current account deficit which is being witnessed by the US itself. And that is the reason the current administration announced various retaliatory high tariffs against various countries. But is it sustainable? Let's suppose there is a person who is in US who loves Indian shirts, the shirts which are manufactured in India, which are being exported from India to US itself. Now, let's suppose the cost of that shirt was $100. But because of this increase in this tariff, that person will have to pay $125 for that shirt itself. And what if this person is not that financially sound that he can afford that shirt in $125 itself? In that case, either that person will have to look up to some other alternatives which will not be that good as the quality of Indian products are there, or he will not be spending in any case. So in this case, this announcement of the tariffs, the high tariffs, that might not be sustainable in the long run for the people of the United States, for the economy of the United States. And what exactly are the major reasons as of now that why these tariffs were announced? It is not just trade economics, but it is also the pressure politics, which is also witnessed, which is also visible from various other things which has been done in last few days. For example, India buys Russian oil, especially after the Russia-Ukraine war erupted. India's main domain, or India were only buying from few people only. However, India started buying oil from the Russia because Russian oil was much cheaper as compared to what was being offered by other OPEC members. So when we were getting cheap oil, crude oil, and we are highly dependent on this import of the crude oil, obviously we will look into the cheaper alternatives. To ensure that we have the low prices of the petrol and diesels, we can save our forex reserves. And that is the reason the imports from Russia rose from 2% in financial year 22 to 36% in financial year 25, especially with regard to the cheap crude oil that is available. You will be aware of the fact that Russia and US are the two poles. And Russia involvement in the Ukraine war and subsequent continuance of that war also is not being liked by the US administration, and that is the reason they have time and again said that the countries who are supporting or who are trading with the Russia, in a way they are also supporting the Russia-Ukraine war. So this was one of the major concern of the US administration, that the people or the countries who are trading with the Russia, especially the oil trade. That is the reason they said that the people who are trading with them, there will be a penalty that will be levied, and for India also, along with the tariffs, there will be a penalty that will be applicable. For 6 companies, they have already announced that penalty. Next important factor that is very instrumental is defense dependence, that India has been consistently more closer with the Russia, and as you know that Russia and US are poles apart. So especially after the independence, we have been one of the major buyers of the Russian defense equipments, be it MiG-21 or be it Mirage 2000, or even with the help of various joint ventures like BrahMos missile that we have developed, which was highly instrumental in Operation Sindoor. So in the past, traditionally we have been more dependent on Russia, but in past few years we have seen the import of Chinook helicopters, which is developed by Boeing, Apache helicopters from US also. But still we are majorly dependent. We have been majorly dependent on Russia itself. With this pressure politics, the US administration also wants that India's defense procurement from US also increases. That will also help in bridging the trade deficit between both the countries. Also, India refuses the introduction of genetically modified crops as well as the US dairy products. For example, a big MNC with the name of Monsanto, who produces the genetically modified crops. Now, they want to introduce various other commodities. As of now, only BT cotton is commercially being grown, because India has various apprehensions with regard to its long-term effects, with regard to the dependency that it will create on the MNCs for the seeds. India wants to have a more clinical trials. India want to actually look up to the apprehensions of the farmers, scientists, etc. As well as the US dairy products, that in India, the dairy almost contributes 5% to the economy, and more than 8 crore farmers are employed by the dairy industry itself. And if the cheap products from US dairy industry will be coming in India, that might jeopardize the employment as well as livelihood to the people who are dependent on this dairy industry. Overall, agriculture that contributes 16% to Indian economy, and more than 46% of the overall people are employed in the agriculture itself. If they will be highly dependent for the crops, for the seeds, towards the foreign MNCs, again their livelihood might be jeopardized. That is the reason India refuses as of now for the introduction of the GM crops and the dairy industry. Also, the ego battle that is going on, as per various commentators, time and again, since the ceasefire which was announced by India and Pakistan on the backdrop of Operation Sindoor, which was launched by India and which targeted the terrorist site initially, which were involved in the Pahalgam attack, and later various other military installations were targeted in Pakistan. But a ceasefire was announced by India and Pakistan. India has maintained a stance that it was the mutual talk that happened between the DGMOs of both countries, whereas since the ceasefire was announced, Mr. Trump consistently said that he brokered the ceasefire between two nuclear armed nations. However, India consistently denied this. And few days back, while replying on the Operation Sindoor, our Honorable Prime Minister also said on the floor of the House that no foreign leader was involved in announcing the ceasefire. So as per some commentators, it also irked the US president. So along with that, what has been the recent announcement with regard to the Pakistan, that the 19% tariff was announced on the Pakistan, which is much lower as compared to India. However, the trade deficit that US has with the Pakistan is much lesser as compared to what the US has with India. More than that, there has been a dinner which was hosted by US President Donald Trump for the Field Marshal Asim Munir of Pakistan. And recently it was announced that US will be coming to explore the oil of the Pakistan, which some of the oil basins which are near the Arabian Sea, near the Karachi coast. So this has been some of the reason about the recent tariff announcement. Also, what is India's position in 2025? Are we able to deal with these kind of tariffs as well as other pressure tactics or not? If we talk about the economic terms, our forex reserves are at $640 billion, as well as we have a strong domestic demand that contributes almost 60% to GDP. When we calculate the GDP by expenditure method, there are four components. One is the household consumption expenditure, plus we have the private investment, plus there is government spending, that is the expenditure by the government that they are doing on paying salaries, etc., plus government investing, the investment that government is doing for building infrastructure, etc. Then we have the net of export, that is export minus import. So if our export will decline, that may lead to reduction in the GDP as well as GDP growth rate. However, if we will see a strong domestic demand, consumption demand or the household expenditure, that may lead to less impact by the less export that we will be witnessing, because when we will have a more tariffs on our exports, that may make our products less competitive in the US market, that may lead to reduction in the demand. What we have witnessed in the case of the shirts, that if earlier cost was $100, however if now the cost will be $125, the person who was earlier buying the $100 shirt, he or she might be looking up to any other alternatives. Also, the government launched various other schemes like production linked incentive scheme, where the incentives were being provided to the companies based on the incremental sales, where the 14 sectors were identified. More than 1 lakh crore was announced allocated for this scheme. It also created more than 1.3 lakh jobs by August 2024 itself. So because to get the benefits under the PLI scheme, the companies started investing in better technology that will lead to reduction in the product cost, and which can lead to making our export more competitive in future. Also, the high infra capital expenditure that government is doing, that will again lead to reduction in the logistics cost, because when the logistics cost is very high, that also adds to the cost of that product, and that product might be less competitive in the future in the foreign market. And with more more infrastructure capital expenditure. When we will reduce our logistics cost, there will be reduction in the export products also, and our product will be more competitive in the foreign market even after the 25% tariffs will be added. Also, we are less reliant on US than before itself. India has the 7th largest trade surplus with the US itself. China is the highest, and because we have diversified our export, that whatever the export we are doing, that is 11% of our total export. We have identified various other markets. We are focusing on various other markets. So despite this tariff that was announced, it is highly expected that it will lead to less impact. However, there can be some IT companies that could gain, because what will happen when there will be high tariffs? Okay, obviously it will lead to the reduction in the exports, and that might lead, when the export earnings will reduce, the forex reserves will also reduce. That may lead to outflow of the foreign portfolio investors, because rupee will start declining. When rupee will depreciate, rupee will decline, the people who were actually, first of all, highly exporting, as well as they were exporting at a competitive price, especially the IT companies, they can benefit if the INR or the Indian rupee will weaken. That if the rupee will be depreciating, these IT companies which are offering the services at much competitive price, they will be earning more rupees because of the depreciation of the rupees. And in 2019 itself, the IT outperformed during the tariff uncertainty itself. In financial year 24, India exported goods worth $81.2 billion to US, which is around 11% of our total exports. The Trump's 25% tariff hike impacts the key sector that will make Indian goods costlier, like the textile and apparel sector, which was contributing around $25 billion to the export, especially the cotton shirts, yoga wear, home linen, etc. were the products which we were exporting. The pharmaceutical, which was contributing around $8.7 billion, especially the generic drugs with regard to the cancer, insulin, which were being exported. In the gems and jewelry sector, we had a contribution of $11.2 billion. In the electronics and machinery, we had a contribution of $15 billion. So with the tariffs that were announced, these were some of the sectors which can be highly impacted, because some of these sectors are labor intensive, the textile sector. So if these sectors will be hit, the earnings of the people who are involved in this labor intensive industry, that might also be hit. Also, the importer or the consumer in the US, they might be finding it very difficult to look up to the alternative. For example, although China's products are at a better price as compared to India, but the quality that India is offering, that is unmatchable if we compare it with the Chinese product. Also, because of the China's strategic rise, that it became an economic horsepower, it is one of the major factors why the US has been so vocal for the tariff itself. Consistently, US has a trade deficit with China itself. It was around $295.4 billion itself in December 2024 itself. Along with that, the reshoring and the de-risking post-pandemic, the supply chain disruptions which was witnessed during the COVID-19, the zero COVID policy which was announced by the China. Since US was also highly dependent on the China for various raw materials like photovoltaic cell, etc. When this supply chain was disrupted, again, it led to alarms going on in the US itself, that tomorrow if again some supply chain disruptions will come, it will impact the industries of the US. It can impact the future growth of the US. That is the reason US wants to become self-reliant, self-dependent, make America great again. That more investment should come in the America itself. The companies should start producing more. They should be less reliant on the foreign supply chain, so that tomorrow if there is a supply chain disruptions, US is less impacted. Also, the trade deficit and the domestic political pressure, the lack of proper jobs, lack of proper economic growth, the inflation being very high. These were other structural issues which the US economy was facing, and that is the reason the US administration was vocal for these tariffs. Also, the geopolitical messaging, because of the rise of the China, the hegemony of the China was increasing. and US wants to ensure that they are the global leader. With this messaging, they are also again ensuring that they are the leader of the world. Someone cannot lead to any policy which can be negatively impacting the US. So kind of arm twisting which US is doing. Also, it can lead to addressing the structural economic concerns, the high current account deficit that we are witnessing, that is after the 2005 and especially after the 2008 economic crisis. Consistently, US is not growing beyond 3% of the GDP, whereas the economy like India is consistently growing more than 6 to 7%. The exports of the US are not that competitive as it used to be. So when their exports earning are not that good and imports is getting flooded, obviously their current account deficit is consistently rising, which is also impacting the other structural or the macroeconomic indicators in the economy. Also, in India, what can be the key economic impacts? India's export to US is just over 2% of GDP, but the composition matters, like the textile, pharma, auto parts and chemicals. These are labor intensive industries which employs a majority of the people in India. So if these industries will be hit, employees may also be hit, their earnings might be also hit, the consumption demand might also be hit. If consumption demand will be hit, it will decline, the private investment will also decline. So in a way, it can lead to a ripple effect on overall economy. Also, tariff may cost India around 30 billion in export earning itself. So $30 billion in export earnings. And the sectors that will be hit: supply chains, employment, short-term GDP momentum, etc. Also, the rupee may get weakened 2% in July 25, because whenever the rupee will be weakening, the people who will be selling their investment in India, they will be getting more money and they will be selling their investment and they will be leaving country. That will again lead to further outflow of the foreign portfolio investors, which will again lead to less availability of the funds for the companies. So with the sectors being hit, less export, foreign portfolio outflows, the rupee may further weaken. Also, it may create RBI's challenge that they will be finding it difficult to balance inflation, which is projected at 3% for the financial year 26, because when the supply chain disruptions will be there, when there will be less goods production of goods and services, because the sectors will be hit, obviously there will be again too much money or the same amount of money that will be chasing too few goods, because the production of the companies are hit, and that may lead to inflation. RBI may find it difficult to tackle that inflation. The policy cut that we have witnessed in last few quarters, that again RBI may take a different instance as compared to what it is taking as of now to address that high inflation. Also, it can lead to capital outflows as well as the growth might be hit. So what exactly should be done? We need to first of all diversify our energy imports. Although we have significantly reduced our imports of Russian oil, because now Russia is also offering almost at the same amount which other OPEC countries and other countries are offering. So significantly in last few months we have reduced the Russian crude oil import. However, we can diversify it to include the LNGs of the US and oil as well as the other OPEC countries. That may reduce the strategic friction between both the countries. Also, we need to strengthen our domestic demand. We need to leverage India's 60% consumption-led GDP growth rate to actually provide cushion to the trade shocks, that even if the exports are getting declined, we need to ensure that consumption expenditure remains at a robust level. For this, the capital expenditure by the government, the crowd-in effect that government expenditure will create will be very important. Also, we need to boost the indigenous defense production. That will ultimately lead to reduction on the Russian dependency via joint venture with US, EU or other countries. We need to diversify our joint ventures also with regard to the defense. Also, we should not be completely dependent on the Russia itself. Also, we need to enhance our export competitiveness. The PLI scheme that was launched or the employment linked incentive that was recently launched, there should be proper oversight mechanism to ensure the incentives which has to be given to these companies based on the incremental sales, that they are being given in the timely manner. Plus, we need to also go for the robust trade agreements with various other countries, various other markets, so that we can diversify our exports and we are less dependent on any one market itself. And we need to maintain a policy credibility. For example, RBI must ensure the macro stability. We need to anchor inflation and manage the rupee volatility prudently. For example, market stabilization scheme, the forex swaps or the currency swaps that the RBI time and again has done, they should be done prudently so that we can address the fall of rupee, as well as with that we will be able to address the foreign portfolio outflow as well as inflation in the economy. The US said that India is a dead economy, but you can see this data is from UN itself, which says that India's economy is projected to grow at 6.6% in 2025 itself. So we are not the dead economy, we are the most bright spot in the world economy as of 2025, and we will be the Vishwaguru irrespective of the sector in the upcoming 21st century, because this century belongs to us. This is a mains practice question that you people can write from this topic. Moving towards our simplified section, the first topic is that why the world needs better green technology. This is related to your GS paper 3, Conservation, Environmental Pollution and Degradation, and this has appeared in today's Indian Express page number 12. So as we have to achieve net zero by 2070, as we are witnessing the high rise in the global temperature, the global warming is increasing, plus the greenhouse gas emissions which are increasing, which the world as well as India wants to address. But how we can address that? We will have to shift to the non-fossil fuel based energy. We have to shift to the green technology, and for that we'll have to invest in the green technology. As of now, we are producing more of the solar energy. We are investing in the solar infrastructure. But is that sustainable? The financial constraints are again with regard to the solar energy itself, solar infrastructure itself. That is the reason this particular text and context is saying that we need to look up to certain other alternatives. We should not shift only to the solar photovoltaics, because China is one of the highest supplier of that. If there will be supply chain disruptions, again the infrastructure building related to the solar sector might be impacted. Plus, we need to again look up to certain other alternatives which can bring down the cost of these green technologies. So it says that as the global demand for sustainable energy source and countries strive to meet climate commitments, the silicon photovoltaics have emerged as most widely adopted solution, transforming landscapes from urban rooftops to sprawling rural installations. So the writer is saying that the installation of solar projects is not only limited to urban areas, rather it has also expanded to the rural areas. And the government's efforts has been very instrumental. For example, government launched Kusum Yojana, that is Kisan Urja Surakshayam Utthan, where one of the component is the standalone solar powered pumps are being installed, or Pradhan Mantri Surya Ghar Yojana, or India was very instrumental in establishing the International Solar Alliance. So because of all these efforts, we are witnessing the expansion of the solar rooftop installation, etc. in the rural areas also. However, as the energy transition accelerates, a critical question that surfaces are conventional silicon panels, despite their proven track record, truly the most effective path forward, or is it the time to embrace next generation technologies that are promising higher efficiency and lower environmental footprints? That these silicon panels which are used in the solar panels to ensure that they are absorbing the solar light and they are converting that into electrical energy, as well as they are being stored in the battery. So are they cost effective? Are they environmentally sound? Are they not leading to more carbon footprint? Isn't it there is a need for researching or for looking up to some new technologies like green hydrogen production, which may have lesser carbon footprint? So that is the reason it is debating that we need to look up to some other alternatives. If you talk about the silicon photovoltaics, that it was originally invented by researchers at Bell Laboratories in US in 1954 and first deployed on satellites so that they could generate power in space. That it was first used in satellites itself, which we are sending in space, that they can absorb the solar light and based on that they can power that satellite itself. But slowly and gradually, as of now, the solar panels generally have a reported efficiency of around 18 to 21% and in-field efficiency of 15 to 18%. In last 15 years or so, around 80% of supply of solar panels has been from China itself. that China became the major contributor, major supply of the solar panels. And in India, the production of silicon solar cells has reached around 6 gigawatt and is expected to increase further in coming years. So as this juncture, as the world prepares to invest more in the solar power, even as the ability to harness it has become a strategic ability, an important question is that should we continue to adopt silicon solar panels even though superior, more efficient technologies have become available? And it is because the efficiency of the solar panel that is very low, that is around 18% itself, they need to have a greater area exposed to the sun than panels of higher efficiency when the efficiency doubles the required collection area halves. For example, because of this less efficiency, the agrivoltaics which is being used, that along with the agriculture, we are installing the solar panels on the land itself, that along with the solar panels, with the help of which we will be producing solar energy, we can also produce the this agriculture products. And with the land area becoming a rarer commodity, because for the solar plants we need land for installation of that, and it is the Bhadla solar power plant which is the biggest in India, largest in India, that is situated in Rajasthan itself. And with less land available, it is, and the urbanization which is taking an uptrend, even the environmental consciousness is increasing, and as well as the pressure of the climate mitigation, the green space are also becoming too valuable to be diverted for the solar power plants, that we cannot cut the forest and we cannot go for the deforestation and we cannot bring this land for the solar plant, because environmental consciousness is also increasing. We need oxygen, and silicon photovoltaics are also slow runners in the world race to catch up with its own growing energy demand, because they have less efficiency, they require more land for the installation. It may not lead to supplying the proper energy that is required, that can fulfill the climate targets like Panchamitra goals that India has announced. Also, the CO2 concentration in the atmosphere has continued to increase from 350 ppm in 1990 to around 425 ppm in 25. That implies that energy demand is only increasing faster. So what is one other alternative? That is the green hydrogen. Widespread adoption of solar, silicon photovoltaics has implications for the greenness of the green hydrogen among other fuel. Hydrogen as a fuel can be produced by using the large electric current to break apart water molecule. And green hydrogen is environmental friendly and does not emit any greenhouse gases when it is combusted. So if we are using renewable energy for producing green hydrogen by doing the electrolysis process, by going through the electrolysis process, it can lead to less carbon footprint, it can lead to less greenhouse gas emissions. Also, the cost hydrogen imposes include that of its storage and the transportation. It is much effective as compared to the solar plant. And as alternatives, experts have proposed infusing the green hydrogen with molecules like green ammonia and green methanol, which are easier to transport, and before extracting the green hydrogen at the destination, that may make it further more effective. Also, using green hydrogen to produce green ammonia or methanol by conventional catalyst methods followed by stripping hydrogen out of those molecules also require a significant amount of energy. Thus, at the first step itself, the act of generating renewable energy from silicon photovoltaics, there is a compromise on efficiency. And in the subsequent steps, energy is consumed for the electrolysis, storage or conversion, and transport, and finally utilization. As the result, greenness of green hydrogen should not be taken at the face value. So what the writer is saying, that although green hydrogen is much more efficient, but it requires energy for the electrolysis, it requires energy for transportation, which will be again supplied by the renewables like solar itself. So in the first phase, we are witnessing that it is very efficient, it is very prudent, but it is not that prudent, because again we are taking energy from the solar plant itself. One alternative to produce green methanol or ammonia directly from water, sunlight and carbon dioxide or nitrogen respectively. And the plant in our everyday garden are readily doing this every day in a process called as the photosynthesis. And similarly, some scientists are working on a process called artificial photosynthesis or APS. While APS technologies are restricted to lab bench, some bright spots indicate they have a promising future. And when we will be able to extract that separately, it will be much easier for us to produce the green hydrogen, which will be cost effective. Also, the Europe is already working on the renewable fuel of non-biological origin, or RFNBO, which is the production of fuels with renewable energy and resources and without biomass. India should also work on such futuristic solution to become energy independent from its current position of importing nearly 85% of different form of energy sources like coal, crude oil, etc. As well as we are highly using the fossil fuels. Still, our dependency for meeting the this demand of the electricity, more than 70% is coming from the coal-fired power plant itself. As geopolitical conflicts are proliferating and the supply of energy is increasingly disrupted, achieving self-sufficiency is paramount, and these kind of the renewable fuels of non-biological origin as well as newer technologies like green hydrogen can be highly useful. Like Russia-Ukraine war happened. Before that, the COVID came, and the issue between the Iran and Israel, or Israel-Hamas situation started. Every time when some geopolitical issue starts, India's supply of the crude oil comes in a question mark. So when we are highly dependent on imports, if we will not be self-dependent, it might create future geopolitical complications for us. Also, the countries with highest solar energy capacity is China, USA, and third largest it is India. In India itself, Rajasthan is the highest producing solar energy, highest solar energy producing state, and the biggest plant is the Bhadla plant in Rajasthan itself. Next topic is that before the Supreme Court questions over the age gap in the surrogacy law. This is related to GS paper 2, Executive Indian Constitution, Fundamental Rights, Judiciary, and this has appeared in today's Indian Express page number 12. So first let's try to understand that what exactly is the surrogacy. It is a practice where woman gives birth to a child for an intending couple with the intention to hand over the child after the birth to the intending couple. So some other woman will help in ensuring that the person who wants child, the other woman will ensure that she is bearing the child, and then that the woman will give that child to the intending couple. Also, in India, only the altruistic surrogacy is allowed. No monetary compensation except the medical expenses and the insurance will be given to the woman who was bearing the child. Also, the commercial surrogacy is completely banned, because there has been various cases that some women who, not only due to the complication, because out of certain other things, that some women don't want to get pregnant because of the complications that are involved with regard to the pregnancies. They were looking up to various women who can bear the child, and then the monetary transactions were involved. But with the amended rules that came in the 2021 as well as in 22, this commercial surrogacy is banned. Also, what is the eligibility for the intending couple? They must suffer from the proven infertility as per the medical certification. Only then they can go for the surrogacy, and that too only the altruistic surrogacy, where there will be no monetary involvement. Also, the rights of a surrogate child will be deemed, the child will be deemed to be a biological child of the intending couple. And what about the abortion provisions? It is prohibited at any stage of the surrogacy except under the conditions that are prescribed under the MTP Act, that if the child is with some of deformities, etc., then that can be aborted. Also, eligibility for a surrogate mother, she must be a married woman between 25 to 35 years with a child of her own, can be surrogate only once, and must be medically as well as psychologically fit. Also, the relation to couple originally required to be close relative. However, now any willing woman is allowed as per the amended rule in 2022. So, as there are certain other things that, for example, single women are eligible only if they are widows or divorcees between the age of 35 and 40. Also, the law says that intending couple, the woman must be between 23 and 50 years of age, and man between the 26 and 55 years. And this was given by the Surrogacy Regulation Act 2021 as well as Assisted Reproductive Technology Act 2021 that was enacted in January 2022, which banned the commercial surrogacy and allowed only altruistic surrogacy. So it says that what if there is a person who is between this age or above this age, that is if they are above the 50 years of age, and if the father is above 55-year age or the single mother is above 45 years age, and they started going for this surrogacy practice before this rule came into the picture. So whether this rule is retrospective or not, we'll be seeing in this petition by the various people who are involved in this, and this will be decided by the Supreme Court. And the petitioner actually are arguing that the retrospective application of these conditions was unreasonable, as well as this criteria of the age is again violating the Article 14 of the Constitution, and also inferred with reproductive autonomy, it is also impacting or violating the Article 21. This is the reasoning of the petitioner. And then also we have the regulatory laws, which usually offers the transitional safeguard for those navigating compliance during the legislative shift. That earlier there was no law, or earlier there was a different law, and then there is a different law that is being applicable, or that will be applicable after a new law is coming. So these provisions are called as grandfather clauses, which grandfather in certain existing situations. The Surrogacy Act has no such transitional clause. That what if someone started in the month of December 20, and due to the COVID-19 restrictions that person could not complete their surrogacy practices. So there is no grandfather clauses or exceptions that are provided for this transition period. That is again one of the major reasoning of the people who have gone to the Supreme Court. Next topic is that Maharashtra scraps the EWS quota in private medical college. This is related to your GS paper 2, Indian Constitution, judgments and cases, government policies and interventions, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu, page number 4. So the Maharashtra government has withdrawn its decision to implement the 10% reservation for economically weaker section in private medical colleges, asserting that the quota will only be applicable if the central government or the respective medical councils increases the existing number of seats to ensure that it does not affect the other category allocations, the category allocations which is there for OBC, SC or ST. Because if there was 100 seat only, and if we are also giving 10% seat to the EWS, it might affect the allocation to other categories, and that is the reason the government is saying once the seats will be increased, we will be able to give reservation to the EWS so that other categories are not impacted. And it says that for all other courses that 10% EWS quota will be implemented on the currently available seat itself. And in the move actually follows the backlash from the medical aspirants and their parents after the CET cell, that is the Common Entrance Test cell, declared commencement of admissions for medical undergraduate courses, and in its NEET UG 2025 information brochure released on July 23, it mentioned the inclusion of a 10% EWS quota even in the private medical college. What about this EWS reservation? In 2019, the Parliament passed the 103rd Amendment of the Constitution that provided the EWS quota. Government said that 10% of seats in educational institutions and government jobs would be set aside for the people of the poorer section on the basis of their income of the family, as well as the land holding, as well as the size of the dwelling. Also, it covers private unaided educational institution except the minority educational institution. The quota excludes the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, OBC, as well as socially and educationally backward classes from its ambit. And it amended the Article 15, included Article 15 subclause 6 as well as Article 16 subclause 6 in the Constitution. And Article 15 actually forbids the discrimination on the ground only of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth. So that means there can be some other ground based on that discrimination can happen. One such discrimination is happening, that is the land holding or the income of the family. As well as Article 16 guarantees the equality of opportunity in public employment. There cannot be any discrimination. However, there are again certain exceptions to this article. Also, the additional clauses allowed government to bring in 10% reservation for economically weaker section of society. It also empowered state government to give reservation on the basis of the economic backwardness. The annual income of less than 8 lakh, these people as well as who are not covered under the reservation of OBC, SC, ST can get the benefits of this quota. Also, they cannot claim benefits if their families own more than 5 acres of agricultural land or 1000 square feet of residential land. There was this Janhit Abhiyan case where the constitutionality of this amendment came in front of the judiciary, where there were various questions in front of judiciary. For example, can reservation be provided on an economic criteria? With the majority judgment of Justice Maheshwari, Trivedi and Pardiwala, it said yes, there can be economic criteria for the reservation. Also, can SC, ST, OBC groups be excluded from the EWS reservation benefits? Yes, they form a separate disadvantaged group. Also, can EWS reservation exceed 50% limit? The majority view was that 50% limit is flexible as well as applies only to socially and educationally backward classes. However, the minority view was different from the majority view in the case of this question that can SC, ST, OBC groups be excluded from the EWS reservation benefits, as well as the question that can EWS reservation exceed the 50% limit. Next topic is that advanced guided missile frigate delivered to Navy. This is related to your GS paper 3 defense, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu page number 16. So it says that the Indian Navy on Thursday received the advanced guided missile frigate Himgiri, which is built by the Garden Reach shipbuilders in Kolkata, and Navy called it a major milestone in achieving self-reliance in warship design and construction. Himgiri, and it is the third ship of Nilgiri class which is being built under the Project 17A. So what we can say that this is Project 17A, under which we are building the Nilgiri class stealth frigates, and it is follow-on project to the Project 17, which was Shivalik class, and it involves construction of 7 state-of-art guided missile stealth frigates, and these are being built by the MDL Mumbai as well as the Garden Reach shipbuilders of Kolkata. And we have certain other projects like Project 75I, which is a follow-up to the Project 75 and aims to build 6 advanced diesel-electric submarine with air-independent propulsion capabilities, which allows them to stay underwater for a longer period of time, and that may make them more prone to attacks from the enemies. Also, as per the Navy, Himgiri is modelled on the erstwhile INS Himgiri, a Leander class frigate which was decommissioned way back in May 625 after 30 years of service to the nation itself. Also, we have the different class of submarines. For example, Kalvari class, under which we have the INS Kalvari and Khanderi. We have Sishukumar class, under which we have INS Sishukumar, Shalki, Shankus and Shankul. Then we have the Sindhu Ghosh class, which is being developed with the help of Russia, whereas Sishukumar was being developed with the help of Germany, and Kalvari is being developed with the help of France. Under Sindhu Ghosh, we have the Sindhu Ghosh, Sindhu Ratna, Sindhu Vijay, Sindhu Dhwaj, Sindhu Keshari, Sindhu Raj, Sindhu Kirti and Sindhu Astra. These are the different submarine as well as their classes according to the origin as well as the different capabilities that they have. Next topic is Pradhan Mantri Kisan Sampada Yojana. This is related to your prelims government schemes as well as GS paper 3 food processing and infrastructure, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu page number 15. So there was a union cabinet meeting on Thursday which increased the budgetary outlay for the flagship scheme Pradhan Mantri Kisan Sampada Yojana by 1920 crore to 6520 crore to boost the food processing sector itself. And this food processing sector actually contributes more than 2% to overall GDP itself, and more than 10% of workforce is dependent on the food processing sector itself, as well as more than 10% is its contribution in the export of India. That is the reason government launched this dedicated scheme Pradhan Mantri Kisan Sampada Yojana to actually look up to the infrastructure need. And the enhanced funds to be provided this fiscal, they will be utilized for 50 multi-product food irradiation units and 100 food testing labs. And the decision was taken by in the meeting of the Union Cabinet that was chaired by Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Let's look into the basic details about Pradhan Mantri Kisan Sampada Yojana. This is a central sector scheme. 100% contribution is from central government. It is under Ministry of Food Processing Industry. And the objectives are to supplement agriculture, to create processing and preservation capacities, the further enhancement of that product can be increased, shelf life can be increased, grading sorting infrastructure can be developed. Also to modernize and expand the existing food processing units to increase the level of processing to add value, leading to reduction of wages. There are various components under Pradhan Mantri Kisan Sampada Yojana, mega food parks which is discontinued, integrated cold chain and value addition infrastructure, infrastructure of agro processing clusters, creation of backward and forward linkages, creation, expansion of food processing and preservation capacities, food safety, quality assurance infrastructure, human resource and institutions. For example, in the food processing industry, backward linkages are availability of the raw material, the infrastructure for grading and sorting. Forward linkages are branding, marketing, transportation, as well as ensuring that there is proper price discovery of the products. In the food safety and the quality assurance, we are seeing that whether sanitary and the phytosanitary measures are being properly followed or not, because there has been instances, for example, MDH masala or the Everest masala were sent back by the Hong Kong, Singapore, etc. Why? Because there was increased presence of ethylene oxide, which is a product chemical generally used for the sterilization in the medical industry, but it was used in masala to ensure that there is no germination of the pathogens. But in India, they are not following any parameter. Still, they are selling their products. But the limits or the parameters that are much more stringent in the foreign countries, that is the reason these products were sent back. And that attracts a negative image for our exports. So for that, we need to ensure that the food safety, quality assurance is being properly followed in the food processing. And the main aim why this was launched to ensure that modernization of the supply chain infrastructure is being done. This is all from today's analyst. Thank you very much. All the very best. Keep studying.